Good evening and welcome to the campus of UW-Whitewater. I'm your host, Sam Matheny, and alongside me today is Alex Carpenter. We ask you to please excuse our momentary interruption of sports from your regular daily schedule. And in today's episode, we will be discussing if each playoffs in each professional sport should be changed. So let's just get right into it here. After a 162-game schedule, Major League Baseball has a play-in game for the first two wildcard teams. Then have a best-of-5 series for the NLDS. Then a best-of-7 series for the Championship Series and the World Series itself. Should baseball change the playoffs or keep it as it is?
Well, I think they should change the wild card at some point. I mean, I get it, it's a one-game play-in, but I think one thing, they should change the seeding after the wild card, because after the wild card, you have an 83-win team taking on, in this case, sometimes a 90-win team, 91-win team, and the winner of that team has to face the #1 seed, and I don't think that's really fair for the other team, because they just barely made it, and they have to defend themselves against a #1 seed in the league. I just kind of find that unfair, so I think they should kind of reseed the wild card as according to their records, depending on what kind of seasons they have.
I disagree with that. I think when you have a #1 seed, you're supposed to play the lowest seed team, because that's just what you did. When you have a good series like that, or a good season, I should say, and then you come in and then you have to play the wild card team, I think that makes the most sense, just because, you earned it. You earned your spot.
Yeah, I do think sometimes the records are a little out of whack. Sometimes they're 20 games apart, which is it doesn't seem really fair. I mean, I get that's how the bracket works, but sometimes I think reseeding it would make it more balanced. You wouldn't have 200-win teams facing off. You would have each 100-win team hosting a series rather than them playing each other. I just think that's kind of better for the game, actually.
So when it comes to how many games they should play in the wild card, do you think they should have wild card at all, or do you think it should just be 4 teams going at it for the pennant?
I like the wild card because sometimes you have divisions where the division leader gets a 20-game lead in June and just never comes back, and so the other division teams kind of lose hope for themselves for winning the division. I think the wild card gives them a sense of hope that there is still a way to get into the postseason without winning the division, because if they have a 20-game lead on top of their division in June, it's very unlikely that they're going to give it up. So it gives them a false sense of hope that we can still make it to the postseason.
Honestly, I think there should be 3 games in the wild card round, just because the baseball is a game of series. You have throughout the regular season you play 3 or 4 games against one team. I think it should stick the way it is, because I think that's how traditionally it should be. Next up, we'll discuss the NBA playoffs. We'll be right back. Please excuse this commercial break.
UWW-TV has been an important part of the campus and community since 1980.
Not only providing on-air learning opportunities for broadcast journalists and electronic media production students,
but educating and entertaining our audiences with award-winning news, live sports coverage, original programming,
as well as dedicating the mission to developing creative collaborations throughout campus.
For more information, visit our website, our 24/7 stream, and like us on Facebook.
Check us out, because you got to see what's on UWW-TV.
We'd love to show you what it's like to be a Warhawk.
Come on!
Don't miss out on your chance to be a Warhawk.
At UW-Whitewater,
You belong here!
UW-Whitewater Athletics, a relentless pursuit of excellence across 22 sports, powered by a tradition of success. 20 national championships, 17 since 2002. 61 individual national titles. 24 National Athletes of the Year. 616 All-Americans. 115 Conference Scholar Athletes of the Year. 1,500 community service hours annually. Be a part of the tradition and join the Warhawk family.
Here at UW-Whitewater Intramural Sports, we have a motto: a sport for everyone and everyone in a sport.
Come on!
That's it anyways. Oh, she got that off. They're going to count it.
Had a blast. Always have fun at intramurals.
Every day we strive to go above and beyond that goal by providing healthy exercise, promoting leisure education and giving students that competitive atmosphere they are looking for.
Yes! Yes!
It's exciting. Brings me back to those high school days with Friday Night Lights.
With our 25 different intramural sports offered, we guarantee that we have a sport for you. Go to our website and find your sport today.
Welcome back to Please Excuse Our Momentary Interruption of Sports from Your Regular Daily Schedule. The NBA playoffs have a best of 7 in each round of the playoffs, which for some teams have a typical season that stretches from October to June, prior to the shortened season. And the NBA recently had a play-in tournament a few years ago for the bottom 4 seeds in the standings after the season just to get into the playoffs. Should the NBA go to 5 games for earlier rounds?
Yeah, I think they should. I think the postseason for the NBA is way too long. You have 4 best of 7 series, which is 28 games at maximum a team can play. And like you said, a season can go from October to July. That doesn't make much sense to me. If it goes 8 months of the year, they don't really get an off season. I also think that the number of teams in the NBA playoffs should decrease. They have 20 of 30 teams making the playoffs every year. I kind of think that's tedious. Like, you have the Charlotte Hornets and the San Antonio Spurs last year who were 33 and 39 in 72 games, and yet they make the postseason. That just doesn't seem right to me. Like, you have to make, if it's like the 8 seeds, I would get that, but that's the 10 seeds. That's when I'm like, you have 2/3 of the postseason, of the league making the postseason. It just seems kind of tedious to me.
I kind of agree with that, honestly. I think that the first round should be like 3 or 5 games, maybe even 3 games, and then they should move to a 5-game series. And once they get to the conference finals, it goes 7. And then, just like we talked about last segment with baseball, obviously the NBA finals should be 7 games because you never know. A team could make a run deep in the postseason, and we've seen it happen before.
Yeah, the early rounds of the postseason, in my mind, they are important, but like not as many people watch them as the NBA Finals, let's say. Like, the NBA Finals have way better ratings than like the first round does. And I think that decreasing the amount of games in those series would really help the NBA postseason.
Do you think load management is important when it comes to making a deep playoff run, or do you think it should even be allowed?
Yeah, I think it should be allowed. I mean, with good reason anyway. If you win the division like 2 weeks before the season is over, I think you shouldn't do it quite yet. But if it's like the last 2 games of the season, I think you have every right to do that because you're resting your good players for the postseason when it really matters. Because if the last 2 games you play don't really matter, well, then there's really no point in getting your star players injured. Because if they're injured, well, now what do? You're in the playoffs without your star player. So I think to an extent that's acceptable.
And I think when it comes to, having players like Kyrie Irving out, as we saw in 2021 when he was on the Nets, or James Harden, I forget which one it was. But either way, I still think that, they should be able to rest their players. But at the same time, if they're worrying about resting their players, then they should just shorten the regular season because I think it's just too long. 82 games. I mean, you could easily determine who's the champion of the conference, or even see what your seeding is in like 60 games. Because you think about it, I mean, there's 8 teams that make the playoffs in each conference, like you just said. And last year they had it as 10 teams that made the playoffs. So I think it just doesn't give much So the teams that get time off after, if they don't make the playoffs, it gives them way too much time off, and then the other teams are just sitting there like, oh, twiddling their thumbs, what do I do now? So.
Yeah, they have a longer offseason. I do think the NBA season is a little longer than anticipated, but I do think the postseason is the 82-game schedule is acceptable because, Major League Baseball plays 162 games, and they're fine. But I think the postseason spanning over a month and a half, I think that's kind of tedious because even the MLB postseason is a month at best. So I think the postseason should be dumbed down a little bit, but I think the regular season can stay right where it is, 82 games, because that's what we're used to. I think 60 games I see where you're coming from with that, but I do think the 82 games is acceptable as it is now.
Next up, we'll discuss the NFL playoffs. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
On. Flip them off. 91.7 WSUW-TV. 91.7 is a student-run radio station serving the Whitewater area with a variety of original programs, live sports broadcasting, community events, and more. So turn us on. 91.7 FM. Or stream us live at 917theedge.com.
UW Whitewater Athletics, a relentless pursuit of excellence across 22 sports, powered by a tradition of success. 20 national championships, 17 since 2002. 61 individual national titles. 24 National Athletes of the Year. 616 All-Americans. 115 Conference Scholar Athletes of the Year. 1,500 community service hours annually. Be a part of the tradition and join the Warhawk family.
As an Army ROTC cadet at Whitewater, you have the opportunity to develop into a great leader while learning and applying the Army values to your everyday life. Within ROTC, you have the chance to travel overseas in the CULP program to train with other militaries, attend many elite Army schools such as Airborne and Combat Diver, and you have the opportunity to attend conferences and guest lectures by some of the Army's top-ranking officers. Our Warhawk cadets participate in many extracurricular activities, Division III sports, Greek life, intramural sports, among many other team building and community service events. Being a cadet at Whitewater is more than just being part of the Army. It's also about being active members in our community and coming together to form a family atmosphere. Anyone who wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves while developing themselves professionally should consider UW Whitewater ROTC. To sign up for UW Whitewater ROTC, go to the 4th floor of McCutcheon Hall to room 417.
Welcome back to Please Excuse Our Momentary Interruption of Sports from your regular daily schedule. The NFL playoffs are just one game, winner take all. The playoffs are now a 14-team field compared to the 12-team field we saw in 2020 to 2021. Should the NFL playoffs be 12 or 14 teams?
I think they're great as it is right now. I don't know about anyone else, but on Wild Card Weekend, the first weekend of the season, I think that's having 3 games on the Saturday and 3 games on the Sunday. I think that's really fun to watch rather than having 2 on each day. It's still, you get football, but I think it's more football. And I think NFL is the only sport that can get away with a one and done game, because MLB can't really do that, in my opinion. NBA doesn't do that. NFL can get away with that, have 3 rounds, and it still only lasts a month. It lasts as much as the other postseasons. In fact, shorter than the NBA postseason. So I think it's perfect the way it is.
I think it needs to go back to 12 teams, 12 teams in the playoff, because honestly, I think it should be done by mid-January, given the fact that even if you have 12 or 14 teams, it's going to get done at the same time. But I just think that, like players, they don't like this new 17-game schedule as is, because they're risking injury, they're playing more, they're not really getting paid any more money for really, staying and playing an extra game. And I think it's just for a fan aspect, it's not like what the players want. So that's why I think it should be still 12 teams.
I agree that the 17-game schedule is kind of tedious. I'm not really used to it yet. I don't think that's what we want to do. But I think the playoffs should stay as it is, because it's what we're used to doing. You have the wild card matchup, you have the divisional matchup, you have the championship, and then the Super Bowl in February. That's just what it's known for. The Super Bowl is always in February. And even in February, there is basketball season, but you have basketball season all of February, not just the Super Bowl is always the first Sunday in February. So you always have time for basketball at that point.
And I think the thing that really discriminates it for me is like the competition from college bowl games. You're competing for the bowl games that are going on in the college football playoff, and then you're also competing against for yourself with the NFL, because there's so many games to watch. So I think it would actually increase ratings if they were to shorten up the playoffs and actually make the regular season go back to 16 games, and then they were to not have so much time in between games. I get that you have to have a week in between because it's football, you have to have those matchup, that preparation, but I still think there's too much competition with the college football bowl games.
I do agree the 16-game season is better, but I do think the NFL does a good job in spreading out the games so you can watch them one at a time. And the college bowl games, they happen every year, in my opinion. The only ones that really matter to people, in my opinion, is the college football playoff, and that's in December. Sometimes it's on New Year's Eve. And I get it, bowl games are more important to people than some, but I think the NFL, it's more is at stake. People can win a Super Bowl rather than just seeing some college people take on each other. It seems like the NFL should always outduel bowl games. Not saying anything against college football, but I just think that that's more of a time for NFL playoffs and not college football.
I disagree a little bit on that one, just because, the college football, they're playing for their career, and I get they're kind of doing the same thing in the NFL, but the reason I think there should be 6 teams in each conference playing against each other is because, like you just said with NBA just a few minutes ago, it's not like every team should get in. And I get it's less than half that are getting in, but at the same time, divisions mean more, and I think that's why it's important.
That's true, but you do have, like you said, there's only 14 of the 32 NFL teams get in. NBA, you have 20 of 30, which is ridiculous. But I think the 14 of 32 is perfect. It's less than half. You don't have to be like, okay, we're only going to go halfway and we're still going to make the postseason. You still have to put in a lot of effort in order to get to the postseason. I like that format. It is more teams, but then you can see teams that have never really been to the postseason. They have a chance to finally get in the postseason as the 7 seed. The Jets, if they were to make the postseason one year, they would be probably the 7 seed. So you would see new teams in the postseason, and I really like that aspect of it.
I'd agree with you on that one, actually. I think having more teams in there gives a better team, or even teams that don't really have a shot, it gives them a chance to make the playoffs. Next up, we give our opinions on the NHL playoff format. We'll be right back on PEOMIOSFYRDS.
What does it mean to be a Warhawk?
It means allowing myself to dream big and think outside the box.
Pushing the limits of what I think is possible.
Seeing ideas through from start to finish.
Collaborating with professors and peers.
And seizing opportunities in the community to put my knowledge to use.
I'm studying abroad,
learning another language,
and listening to the stories of others.
I'm making lifelong friends and fearlessly sharing my gifts with the world.
As a Warhawk, I stay balanced,
take great care of myself,
and get out of my comfort zone.
I refuse to let the past determine my future.
And I'm taking confident steps in the directions of my dreams.
Sometimes it doesn't make sense.
And other times it couldn't be more exciting.
But I will keep my goals in mind
and never quit.
Because
that's the Warhawk way.
Video One Media Services provides accomplished students the opportunity to enhance their college experience by working with real-world clients. In addition, we provide clients local and affordable video options to better enhance their media needs. For more information on how Video One Media Services can help you with your next media project, email or call our office at 262-472-5659.
UW Whitewater Athletics, a relentless pursuit of excellence across 22 sports, powered by a tradition of success. 20 national championships, 17 since 2002. 61 individual national titles. 24 National Athletes of the Year. 616 All-Americans. 115 Conference Scholar Athletes of the Year. 1,500 community service hours annually. Be a part of the tradition and join the Warhawk family.
The NHL playoffs feature a best-of-7 series in each round. After an 82-game season, should the earlier rounds be best-of-5 series, or should they stay the same?
Well, I think the first three, so the NHL is like the NBA. Basically, you have 28 games maximum. I think that should change, especially the first round. If you have the 1 seed taking on the 8 seed in normal bracket style, it's absolute torture to watch that for 7 games. I mean, I get it. Number 1 seeds can be upset and all that. I mean, but Virginia in the March Madness was upset in 1 game. You don't have to do it in 7 games. I think 3 games is plenty. And it's like watching the Chiefs play the Jets. You don't want to watch that every time. It just gets boring after a while. And I think the middle series should be a best-of-5, because they do mean more, and you have like the 1 and 4 seed. It's better matchups than like the top team and the bottom team taking on each other. I think those are more important, and I think the Stanley Cup should be 7 games still, because that's just how it's always been. So yeah, that's
hot take like that always from Alex, you know. But I think it should stay at 7 games for each round, because everyone has a chance to win. It's hockey. It's not like it's kind of like soccer. Like there's a little bit of luck involved, but at the same time, hockey, if you go best-of-7 series, you can really see how deep a team is in the postseason. And I think, especially with all the expansion teams they're adding and the divisions, they're changing up divisions. The Coyotes moved to the Central Division. I still think it's a good opportunity for all the teams to get involved, because we saw just a few years ago, if not mistaken, 2 or 3 years ago, we saw all 1 seeds were taken out in the first round. So I think that makes it actually a lot more exciting.
Yeah, but I think you can do that in 3 games, right? Instead of 7. I mean, you don't need to play 4-3 to upset a team. You can play 2-1. Like I just said, Virginia, the number 1 seed in March Madness, was upset in 1 game. So it's time, and it's less time, but I think it's better for the players, because the NHL season, I think, is longer as it is with 82 games. And plus the NBA and NHL have 28 maximum postseason games, I think that gets to be a lot. Especially the early series where it's just the Chiefs playing the Jets, like I just said. It just gets boring after a while, in my opinion.
I disagree. I think playoff hockey is actually the most exciting playoff format there is in all of sports. I don't follow NHL much in the season, I'll be honest with that. But when it comes to the Stanley Cup playoffs and just getting into the Stanley Cup finals, that's like the most exciting for me because I'd rather watch that any day of the week over the NBA. Yeah, okay, yeah, maybe not with the Bucks. But when the Bucks suck, you know, like I don't know, the last 60 years, right? I still think that it's important to like look at the NHL because the NHL is doing a lot of good things. You know, they're having expansion teams come in. They're really growing their game overall. So I think it's important to look at that because, you know, the Stanley Cup playoffs, in my opinion, are the most exciting playoffs to watch.
They can be. The NHL has exciting moments, mostly when people fight. I think that's the best part of it. Well, coming from a fan, that
wow,
is.
okay.
I'm sure the players don't appreciate that, but
I don't know.
I think the best of 3 series is fine. I mean, it is less games, but you're still playing hockey. It's still the postseason. You're just doing less of it.
That will do it for us here tonight. Thank you for watching and tune in next time to hear more hot takes all around the world of sports. This has been Please Excuse Our Momentary Interruption of Sports from your regular daily schedule on UWW-TV.